Part 115. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1145. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. His voice was like a magic spell, with an incomparable hypnotic effect that quickly made the girl roll her eyes and fainted to the ground. At this moment, the surrounding area had been silently covered by a spherical film. The residents of the town outside did not notice anything at all and were still sitting and doing what they should do. Garin put his hand on the middle of the girl's head without hesitation. The other party is just an ordinary person, without a shred of consciousness in his body, and there is no way he can resist his king-level consciousness memory search. But precisely because the gap is large enough, there is no resistance at all in this search, and it will not cause any damage to the girl's brain. After a while, a large memory picture suddenly flowed out of the girl's mind. Scenes after scenes kept replaying in Garin's mind. From the time the girl opened her eyes as a baby, all the memories were there. Xylan raised her with a gentle-looking man. Soon after, the man died. Not long after that, when the girl was 6 years old, Xylan also went out and never came back. Not many days later, someone discovered Xylan's unrecognizable body in a wild ravine. Then came the overwhelming emotions of pain, despair, and sadness. The girl attended the funeral, alone, with no relatives. Only kind-hearted people in the surrounding towns helped her from time to time. Fortunately, the wealth left by Xylan was enough for her to spend her whole life. I just go to the school in the town every day, and then go home to study, read, and crazily want to go out and leave here to find the truth about Xylan's death. At the same time, she inherited the ideal that Xylan had always instilled in her, to keep getting stronger. Until no one can stop it. This is all the content. For Garin, he browsed through the girl's 16 years of memories in just a few minutes. Killed, Garin frowned, and the instructions were quickly conveyed in the energy weapon mark. The message spanned countless distances in an instant and reached the headquarters of the Red Snow Alliance. The huge Alliance database was quickly mobilized, and the huge power network and intelligence network were in full swing. Once you have specific directions and features, similar information can be easily found. But in a moment, all the events about Xylan's murder appeared in the Garin mark. Xylan didn't know why, but he left the sphere of influence of the mechanics. As a simple pilot, he stayed away from the bustling area and lived in seclusion. Later, he found an ordinary man and got married. It seemed that he was avoiding something. Later, he was attacked and killed by an outsider's pilot. It seems that because they were exploring a forbidden relic together, the members were not sharing the spoils equally, and there was internal conflict. Because of qualifications, opportunities, and other factors, Xylan was only a pilot who barely broke through to the inheritance level before his death. As a mechanic, his development was far less advanced than that of a pilot, and it seemed that she had given up on him. She had been fighting for strength all her life, and the end result was this, dying silently in such a small town. Garin actually understands that Xylan is just a small so-called genius in the black disk domain. He is nothing in the larger environment. It is already very good to be able to grow to the inheritance level. This is also the case for many small local geniuses and elites. Partial extent. Further up, what is needed is not qualifications, but character, opportunities, and many other factors. Find the location of the murderer, Garin ordered directly. Understood, the Red Snow Alliance's quantum message replied. Garin came back to his senses, looked at the girl in front of him, stretched out his hand, and gently pinched her cheek. It was soft, smooth, and a little cold. He actually died. The truth that I originally planned to find out can only be buried in time. What happened to Xylan back then is unknown. Only the dead Xylan himself knows. Did she betray Garin, or was she forced to disguise herself? Everything has become a mystery. The message from the Red Snow Alliance was quickly responded to. Garen's figure disappeared in front of the girl in an instant. When he reappeared, there was an extremely lively bar in front of him. It was dark and noisy. Men and women were twisting their bodies crazily. The clothes on their bodies were either sexy or enchanting. Garen looked through the crowd and saw several men and women sitting at a table with comfortable expressions. Some of these people had their legs crossed on the table, some were smoking cigarettes, drinking wine, and seemed to be playing some game. Another person was playing with his mobile phone nearby, and the screen reflected on his face, making him look pale. Garen carefully identified these people. She took another look at her attire. She was dressed in a sexy outfit. She was also wearing a white short skirt and black stockings, and her blonde hair was scattered around her shoulders. Suddenly I couldn't laugh or cry. People from the Red Snow Alliance didn't need to dress like this when they came to investigate. He directly relied on dreams to travel and landed on the confused Red Snow Alliance member who was taking drugs, but he did not expect that the other party was a woman and she was also wearing hot clothes. He casually used the force field to condense and simulate a black cloak, and Garen strode towards the people at the table. A shadow silently shot from Garen's feet to the people at the table. Whoosh! The shadow instantly divided into several paths and sank directly into the soles of several people's feet without any sound. After a while, several people were swaying around and fell down on the table with a pop bang. Suddenly, the heads of these people exploded like exploding watermelons. Ah! Ah! Suddenly, screams rang out throughout the bar, and the people nearby were frightened by the sudden change and ran away in all directions, while the people in the distance had no idea what was happening and were still twisting wildly and cheering loudly to the music. Suddenly there was a crowd of people, and the entire dance floor in the hall was in chaos. Garen turned around and left, taking off his black cloak. Whoosh! His eyes suddenly blurred, and his perspective changed to outside the bar, where another little boy was sleeping soundly and being held in his mother's arms. The boy's eyes opened and he stared at the messy bar. This is the dream shuttle possession. As long as it is within a certain range, individuals who are sleeping or confused cannot escape the fate of being controlled by Garen. Garen possessed the little boy, and as the distance grew farther and farther, he closed his eyes again. Whoosh! Countless colorful things passed by on both sides of him. They were many liquid-like colored things, flowing rapidly and emitting various lights. This is a rainbow-like cylindrical tunnel, so long that you can hardly feel how long it is. Garen's body shuttled and flipped through it. This tunnel was indestructible. He had tried various methods but could not destroy this dream tunnel. You can only use it to travel around and enter and exit the dreams of different individuals. His eyes suddenly lit up. Outside a wilderness, there are dense cemeteries in front of them. Some of the tombstones and crosses are crooked and dilapidated, and no one has taken care of them. Garen's body is standing in front of a black tombstone, and the writing on it is a little blurry. But you can still vaguely see the words Xylan written on it. This body is a Red Snow Alliance member possessed by Garen. When he leaves, he will naturally act according to the instructions issued by the Red Snow Alliance. Squatting down, Garen gently placed a bouquet of white flowers in front of the tombstone. There is not much time to come out this time. The next trouble must be solved as soon as possible. Garen originally wanted to stay here for a while, but he could only look at Xylan's tombstone with regret. Exhaled. It seems that the truth of all this may only be solved by Xiaolun. Aha! His eyes flashed, and he entered the dream tunnel again. A huge white waterfall, a large amount of lake water flows down the waterfall, pulling out a piece of white water. The water splashes with white water, intertwined and overlapped, and it is extremely thick. Diamond Falls, one of the most famous attractions in the finite Central Star Territory. The entire waterfall is in the shape of a semicircle when viewed from above. On both sides of the waterfall, on the left side is the calm, mirror-like green lake water, and on the right side is the white water flowing down. White clouds float slowly in the sky, and in the middle of the blue sky, a golden star slowly sheds soft and warm sunlight, diluting the coldness of the agitated water flowers. Long. Amidst the rumbling sound of the waterfall, in the middle of the waterfall, sitting on a black reef, was a man in white who was fishing. He held the long white fishing rod in both hands, letting the fishing rod and fishing line be pulled straight by the rushing water, without any expression on his face. Sitting alone in the middle of a huge waterfall that is thousands of meters long, this place is filled with various twisted magnetic fields and radiation. Even ordinary heritage-level pilots dare not fly over here. The man in white didn't seem to feel it at all, sitting quietly on the black reef, as if waiting for the fish to take the bait, but also seemed to be waiting for something else. At this time, on the other side of the huge waterfall, a figure in a black cloak slowly stepped into the water of the waterfall. Following the boundary between the white chain and the lake surface, the black cloak seemed not to be affected by the flow of water at all. He just stepped into the water and let the water cover him. Calf. Step by step, he walked towards the man in white. Not far away, the water vapor stirred up by the huge water waves floated, forming a faint rainbow in the sunlight. The black cloak kept walking toward the man in white, without being affected by radiation or magnetic fields at all. He didn't stop until he was 10 meters away from the man in white. "I've been looking for you for so many years, but I didn't expect you to be hiding in a place like this." The cloak was lifted up, revealing Garen's face. "It's time to settle the accounts." Behind Galen, a brown medieval sailboat slowly floated up, slowly swam in the air, and drifted into the distance. It was the sightseeing boat here. "You can vaguely see someone looking over here." They kept making exclamations. Obviously they didn't expect anyone to dare to enter here. The man in white stood up from the rock. Turning his face, a cold and expressionless man's face was revealed. His eyes were like white stones, without luster and lifelessness. "Your actions make no sense." His voice was dry and hoarse, as if he hadn't spoken for a long, long time. "The light of justice, the former light of freedom, the eternal mover known as the strongest king, Shinandi." Garen stared into the other person's eyes. "Tell me your true identity." Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1146. Amidst the rumble of water, Garen's voice was clearly transmitted to the other party's ears. "True identity," Shinandi repeated. He was silent for a long time, squatted down again, and actually ignored Garen. "If you want to see it, come and see for yourself." He finally pointed to his forehead, slowly closed his eyes, continued to hold the fishing rod, and sat down again. As quiet as a sculpture. Garen frowned. Shinandi's original record was not like this. He used to not have this kind of personality at all, but it seemed that it was after a war with the Fenites that he changed into this weird look. He had long suspected how Shinandi became the star of the White King. It's all a mystery. Now, he has only one purpose for coming, and that is revenge. Because of the grievances caused by the second elder of Chixu sect and Shinandi's attempt to control him. But at this level, as a king-level person, facing the eternal moving level Shinandi, there would be no accidents in such a short period of time. Garen knew everything about the movements of the White King and the nearest king level being nearby. "Come and see for yourself," Garen repeated. Without the slightest hesitation, he strode forward and gently placed his hand on Shinandi's forehead. The memory information was linked instantly, and countless memory fragments rushed from Shinandi's mind crazily. Bang! In an instant, countless lights, white light, burst out from the place where the two people came into contact. Garen's entire body was instantly submerged in countless white lights. Massive memories flashed past rapidly, finally settling on a scene in space. It was in a floating metal palace, and the White King withdrew his hand from Shinandi's forehead. There was also a corpse of a man in white robe lying next to it. Long looked carefully and was shocked to find that it was actually another Shinandi. From today on, you are the new light of justice. The White King's voice came from his ears. The immature White King still looked like a teenager at this moment, with a soft and pure smile on his face. Jia Long looked at Shi Nanti's body in his memory. It was shockingly just a ball of flesh with no human shape, a scarlet ball of flesh. Boom! Amidst countless roars, memory began to recede rapidly, and everything around him turned into colorful rainbow light again. Jia Long slowly retracted his hand and looked at Shi Nandi in front of him. He had never thought that this so-called King Star was actually an artifact made by the White King himself. So, the White King knew that I would come to you, Garen asked in a low voice. How many more times can you come out? Shi Nandi asked quietly. Galleons paused. Indeed, besides himself, there is no other person in the world who knows his situation better than the White King. He immediately understood what the White King meant. Shi Nandi is just an artifact of his, and it doesn't matter even if she is given to him. This will also prevent him from finding someone in the end and possibly going crazy. This is just a transaction. Jia Long rolled his eyes and stared at Shi Nandi in front of him. Are you willing? He asked something that seemed unnecessary. After all, whether willingly or not, Shi Nandi could not resist the White King's order. Shi Nandi opened her eyes. I'm just a creature, just a dog of His Majesty's. His eyes were dry and lifeless. Artifact. Garen suddenly felt a little ridiculous. The enemy that had destroyed so many schools of powerful weapon masters and had troubled him for so long was actually just an artifact of the White King, and it seemed that he had been so determined to die for a long time. Then why has he been so crazy about improving himself and looking for traces of Shi Nandi everywhere? Meaningless. There was a surge of anger in his heart for no reason, and Garen pressed his palm violently. Bang! Blood splattered everywhere. Shi Nandi's head exploded instantly, and the top of her neck was completely empty, mixed with bones and flesh, suspended in the center of Galen's palm. Shi Nandi's body slowly fell to one side, but she could still continue breathing. The strong vitality of her body showed that this body was indeed that of a saint and belonged to Shi Nandi's true body. It all ended so simply. Garen had a feeling of complete unreality. Holding in his hand a bead of flesh and blood that had been reduced to the size of a fingernail, he didn't even glance at Shi Nandi's body. Turning around and jumping lightly, he soared into the sky. Behind him, countless white jade-like ice crystal wings bloomed, layer upon layer, getting bigger and wider. In just a few seconds, it almost covered the entire sky above the entire waterfall. Countless crimson snowflakes fell one after another. The entire planet went from summer to winter in just a few seconds. The huge waterfall quickly slowed down, slowly solidified, froze, and finally stood completely still. Transformed into a beautiful ice sculpture. Shi Nandi's body was also among them. The frozen ice melted into one, and a large number of red snowflakes covered it, quickly dyeing the white ice waterfall into light red. There was a muffled sound, and before everyone on the planet could react, the ice crystal wings in the sky disappeared instantly, leaving no traces except the cold red snow. Next to the body of Shi Nandi in the ice waterfall, the figure of the White King slowly emerged. He squatted down and placed his hand on the covered area of Shi Nandi's body. Sorry, he spoke softly in a word that only he could hear. Garen spread his wings and flew in the counter space, and cracks in the void battlefield could be seen from time to time around him. Since the past few years, it seems that there have been more and more cracks in these void battlefields. His whole body was like a big white bird, flying rapidly with ice crystal wings that were almost half the size of an ordinary planet. There was a feeling of frustration and annoyance in his heart that could not be vented. Indeed, he had no reason to take action again. Shi Nandi took the initiative to wait for him to come and die without resistance. What reason did he have to hurt other innocent people? The strongest King Star, Shi Nandi, is actually just a perpetual mover for the White King, a stronger perpetual mover. If a king's extreme revenge can be quelled, then what's the difficulty in letting him commit suicide? Hiss. From a black crack in the space, an extremely huge black snake head slowly emerged, with red eyes like the sun staring at Garen. This is a giant void snake that has appeared more and more frequently recently. Most of the bodies of such giant void snakes are composed of space dust and various ordinary substances. They make a living by constantly devouring high-energy objects. Each of them has at least the ability to survive. Level strength. In recent years, there have been more and more such wild animals. Just as the giant void snake was about to approach Garen, it seemed to smell an extremely dangerous aura. He quickly retracted his head and quickly disappeared. After a few flashes, Garen stopped beside an anti-space asteroid. The wings on his back were like hands, tearing open the void in front of him, revealing a huge crack for advancement. The huge wings quickly retracted and returned to Garen's back. A white robe and golden helmet appeared on him again. Galleons flew lightly into the crack. Red Snow Alliance, Blazing Sun Galaxy. On this day, the entire galaxy was filled with red snowflakes. A huge being with white ice crystal wings on its back arrived. Every ordinary person in the galaxy can see the white transparent wings that are constantly flapping in the sky of the planet, which are the extension of the Alliance leader, the Crystal King. The entire Red Snow Alliance was able to maintain stability because of the Crystal King. Suspended in the middle of the galaxy and on the edge of the stars, Garen showed off his most powerful and brilliant power. This was not just a mere display of strength, but before he left, he finally told the young people that he was still there. He, Garen, the King of Crystals, is still alive. This may be able to preserve the peace of the Red Snow Alliance for hundreds of years. But that's all. Hundreds of years later, Klin and the others must have grown up. Garen looked at the 4 stars slowly orbiting below. He has done everything he needs to do on the planet. Shinandi is dead, and his will and flesh are condensed into beads, which are held in his current hands. The Red Snow Alliance will be Klin's greatest support until he grows up. With the protection of mankind, even if the White King regrets it now, it is already too late. The trend is established. Slowly folding his wings, Garen dived down and flew directly towards one of the main stars. Everything in front of me zoomed in and out, and the surface of the blue planet quickly expanded into a lake. The green lake is surrounded by forests. There is a tall white spire on the edge of the lake. On the top of the tower stand Klingburen and others, as well as Shuangfang and other high rises. All of them raised their heads and looked at the direction Garen was flying from. Leader of the Alliance. Leader of the faction. Brother. Several different shouts sounded at the same time. Garen slowed down slightly, landed on the top of the spire, stood firm with his feet, and then looked at the current Burin. It had been many years since I last saw him, and Burin had more and more white hair on his head, and he was looking at me with concern on his face. Brother Burin took a step forward. After receiving your summons, we rushed back immediately. What happened? In front of outsiders, she is the most ruthless murderous witch, but when facing the people she values, she only has an indifferent expression. Even her expression is because her facial muscles have been stiff for a long time, and she no longer knows how to soften her face. That's right. I'm having dinner with my daughter. They say that my daughter was my father's lover in his previous life, and it's true. Klin next to him looked like a weird uncle with endless aftertaste. Disgusting. Bai Dong, who was not far away, looked at Klin with contempt. I won't even spare my own daughter. Beast. Hey, I just have a good relationship with my daughter, it's not what you think. Clinton's face darkened. Bai Dong, I see we haven't seen each other for so long. Are you dissatisfied and want to fight, right? He started to roll up his sleeves. Just you. Bai Dong raised his middle finger. The gentle personality he once had has now completely changed. Xiao Lun gives you a hand. Don't drag me along if you are arguing. Burin glared at the two of them unhappily, and everyone fell silent immediately. Obviously her prestige in the circle is growing day by day. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1147. The two-faced man and four-armed woman on the side are not as immoral as these few. At this moment, he is reporting to Garen on the recent changes in the situation. After briefly explaining how to deal with it, Garen directly told them that he might have to retreat for a long time and might not be able to come out for a long time. He had to deal with a lot of things on their own, and then explained some emergency plans. Okay, you guys go down first. Xiaolun and I will have a few words alone, Garen ordered. It's the leader. The four-armed woman bowed her head to show respect, and she and Two-Face led the other senior executives down the tower and quickly disappeared from the teleportation point. Garen then looked at Burin and his group, who were still noisy. Okay, stop arguing. I have something to tell you. He spoke, and naturally, Klin and others present also slowly stopped talking. Although they still glared at each other, they became quiet and waited for Garen to speak. Garen waved his hand, and a layer of force field protection suddenly fell around him. The tower here has gone through countless layers of encryption and protection. If you want to get in, even legal procedures will be sensed inside. Even the perpetual motion class cannot come in silently. Brother, if you have anything to say, please tell me. It's agreed, Clint said nonchalantly. As for defense, there is absolutely no problem. Garen nodded just in case. Where's Chiyu? I'm awake, Chiyu's voice sounded among several people. What's up? It's just what I said. I need you to listen to it too, Garen said solemnly. Seeing how serious he was, the relaxed expressions of several people suddenly became solemn, waiting for his next words. Garen raised one hand, and a bright black space ring flew out and fell into Burin's hand. This. Burin held the ring in confusion, and as soon as his consciousness penetrated it, his expression suddenly changed. There are so many things. She was shocked. There were enough precious metals, various treasure resources, etc. that could be seen in the endless ocean. She could even see docked giant battleships and mechas, all of which were top-notch. Of goods. This is what I leave for you, Garen replied calmly. Stay. Burin's expression immediately changed. Brother, where are you going? She was extremely sensitive to words in this area, and she immediately felt something was wrong. Garen nodded. This may be the last time I come out. He told the story of his relationship with the White King, and also spoke frankly about his situation. The essence of confinement that even the King of White is helpless to do. Chiyu was speechless. Others were even more shocked to hear such a big secret, and their initial relaxed mood was completely gone, replaced by an increasingly heavy feeling. Is there any way to do this? There was a trace of sadness in Burin's eyes. He had experienced the grief of losing his relatives many times in succession. His character, which had finally become somewhat normal now, seemed to be showing some signs of returning to its original most extreme state. Garen shook his head. Feel sorry. Snowflakes penetrated the protection bit by bit and fell from everyone's heads. There was silence on the top of the tower. Next time, maybe I won't be able to come out. Everything in the future will depend on you. Before Garen finished speaking, Burin turned around and rushed into the teleportation point and disappeared. The ring was discarded casually by her and rolled several times in the air before being caught by Klin and held in her hand. Garen's eyes fell directly on him. I understand. Klin put away his usual careless expression and nodded seriously. I will take good care of Xiaolun. I'm sorry, Garen said this word again. It's because I failed to shoulder the responsibility of being an older brother. Although he didn't have much feelings for Burin in his heart, he still felt sorry for not being able to fulfill his promise to Nono. And feel guilty. You have already been burdened with enough, Clint said sternly. Garen took a deep breath. Although he no longer needed oxygen, he still acted like this habitually. His eyes swept over the faces of the people in front of him one by one. Clint's perseverance, Bai Dong's composure, and the green-haired man's solemnity. These people are all partners in life and death, and they are all people who can entrust their lives to each other. Trust is sometimes very simple, but sometimes very difficult. Garen actually envied them being able to trust each other so unreservedly. But no matter what, he couldn't do it himself. Next, it's your time. Garen stretched out his hand, and all of Shinandi's flesh and will were suspended in his hand. Climb Essa, let me give you one last helping hand. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly struck out with a palm, landing hard on Clint's forehead in the middle of his eyebrows. Boom! A pillar of red light rose into the sky, broke through the clouds and atmosphere, and shot into space. Using Heather's flesh and blood will as fuel, Garen shaped the concept of his own imprisoned nature into a model in Clint's mind as much as possible. This is a model image memory that can continuously cycle on its own. Everything about the essence of the concept will continue to play in Clint's mind. Until he completely understands some of its essence, or understands his own conceptual essence, he can completely eliminate this problem. Segment image. As the red light rose into the sky, Garen's body began to slowly fade and disappear. Trying to turn the essence of a concept into an image and pass it down. This kind of violation of common sense and laws requires a high price. Garen's body could have existed for several days, but at this moment, all the play was consumed in an instant. All power essence. The remaining people were forced back several steps by the dazzling red light. I could only block the dazzling red light with my hands. Under the tower in the distance, Burin looked at the red light here in the distance, and seemed to feel something. He slowly squatted down and buried his head in his knees. The two-faced man and other high-level officials were in the golden domed hall in the distance, saluting towards the light pillar through the wall. Opening his eyes again, Garen saw the White King outside the crystal, looking at him with a dull expression. He didn't know when he learned to smoke, and he was smoking slowly with a cigarette in his mouth. The solidity of the crystal has become stronger again, the White King whispered. This should be the last time you come out, right? There was no answer from the crystal, and the White King had long been accustomed to it. He walked aside, picked up the wine bottle that had been placed on the ground, and poured himself a glass of wine. The aroma of wine overflowed, and the light green wine was twisting and squirming in the cup like a living thing. The King of White shook the cup gently and stretched out his index finger to lightly tap the wall of the cup. Ding! A soft sound. The wine in the wine glass suddenly changed color, from light green to pure red in an instant. Big red, blood-like red. Did you hear that? Garen's eyes fell on the wine glass. Suddenly I realized that it was not wine, but blood. Gently swaying the wine glass, the White King spoke in a calm and serene tone. It turned red as expected. It seems like you will never come out again. Only then did Garen realize that he had obviously found some way to determine whether he could still come out. He can indeed come out one last time, but once he comes out this time, he will never come back. He is different from other kings. The essence he comprehends is not what is most suitable for him, but comes from the shadow dragon, which is actually not his essence at all. In other words, if there is no shadow dragon's void crystal, then he is not king level at all, at most he is only perpetual motion level. The void crystal made him and ultimately destroyed him. In fact, Garen did not understand the complete concept of essence. He just used a trick to use the essence of the shadow dragon to imprison himself and forcibly elevate himself to the material level where essence exists. Completely integrated with the void crystal. But with the continuous evolution of the nature of imprisonment, he is now like a prisoner imprisoned. In a sense, my goal has indeed been achieved, the White King whispered, Even if you accelerate the growth of the Red King, the result will still be back to the general trend. What's the point of talking about this now? Garen suddenly wanted to laugh, inexplicably. When he came to this world, he achieved the true form of the Cold Hell Peacock Mother and became a Legion-level warrior. Perhaps now he is equivalent to Guyenduo's Demon King-level warrior. Condensing the Ring of Soul Seeds, this is the biggest gain in this world. The Ring of Soul Seed can forcibly deduce the ability of the Major to a higher level, regardless of any conditions, and it is a legal deduction. Do you have any other wishes? The White King took a sip of blood wine. Maybe I can satisfy you. This guy is going crazy. Garen looked at the White King with some pity through the crystal, but his image could not be seen through the crystal at all. The void crystal absorbed and swallowed everything, turning it into the power of evolutionary imprisonment. Even light cannot be projected. The White King's mind seemed to be a little distorted. No one shared his secrets, no one accompanied him, no one comforted him. He was alone in everything. Outsiders only have obedience and reverence. Then just stay away. So much so that he could only talk to Galleon, a crystal that couldn't speak or answer. The White King was still chattering there, not caring whether Garen would answer him or not, he was just venting. Garen didn't bother to pay attention to him and looked directly at his attribute column. The attribute bar in front of you is like the most advanced quantum computer display screen, which can continuously display a large number of dense skills from top to bottom. There are hundreds of different skills, large and small, distributed among them. It might take an average person a long time to find the skill they want. Garen quickly dug out the information about his soul seed. Soul seed Northern Halbir Dir Hanyan Zhen Shui Siegong, blue, Holy Phoenix Magic Book, black gold, Cold Prison Peacock Mother Soul Seed, white. He must consider a retreat, otherwise if this continues, he may be imprisoned in this crystal forever. Became the first Guyenduo Demon King in history to be sealed to death by himself. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1148. The biggest feature of the Demon King is multiple soul seed rings. This structure of soul seed rings, referred to as soul rings, allows the Demon King to covertly and quickly integrate into and grow to its strongest state in a short period of time when it invades any world. However, Garen currently only has one soul ring. According to his speculation, the powerful Demon King level is likely to have multiple soul rings. In this way, once entering the new law universe, he can quickly integrate into the power system and use the soul rings to increase your power level crazily and quickly master the strongest power. This is the horror of the Demon King level. They are the real pillars against the void creatures. I have no will and can only rely on the special ability of the soul to travel and the cohesion of the soul species to maintain my existence. If I want to survive for a long time, I must find a new body as soon as possible, and... Suddenly, Garen suddenly felt the entire palace shake violently. Shock. He was suddenly stunned. Let's not talk about whether there is anyone in the White Palace who can shake the entire palace. Let's just say that the Shadow Dragon Void Crystal that he is imprisoned in has the conceptual essence of devouring and imprisoning all power. It is impossible for such low-level force to be transmitted to make him feel. Arrive. He looked at the White King outside the crystal. He didn't seem to notice anything at all. Roar. A distant and profound roar of a giant beast floated vaguely from a very far distance and penetrated into Garen's ears. The White King still didn't express anything, obviously he didn't hear this voice at all. This is... A trace of solemnity suddenly appeared in Garen's eyes. It's the vibration of the soul seed. The energy mark was quickly calculated and deduced, and with his own body transformed into the Cold Hell Peacock Queen, he had a certain understanding of the void creature's language, and he quickly came up with the meaning of the roar. That roar represents danger. Greedy. Garen quickly looked at an icon in the status bar. The column marked Potential, Void Stalker was flashing with a dazzling and bright red light, and an ancient multi-character symbol appeared behind it. The meaning of the symbol translated is warn. There is a huge threat of void creatures approaching. Level, Legion. Race, Void Lord. The number is 12. Please evade immediately. The best solution is to enter the Mother River and leave. Please note that being a Soul Ring level stalker will greatly attract Void Demon King level beings to pursue you, so please be prepared at all times. Garen immediately recalled the huge ancient void creatures with countless soul species that he encountered when he came to this world. They were swimming on the edge of the Mother River, like fishermen, ready to kill the ancient Yinduo civilization inheritance flowing inside. By did I attract the Legion level ancient creatures? Garen's heart jumped. He knows that among the void creatures guarding the edge of the Mother River, the weakest are Legion level, and the normal ones are all Demon King level, and because they have dozens of soul species, they can completely crush themselves even if they don't form soul rings. Now my identity as a void stalker only attracts the weakest. It seems I really can't stay in one place for too long. Garen knew he had no choice. Finally looking at the White King outside, Garen sighed in his heart. Coming to this world, I ended up leaving this way. Guyinduo did not find more information, but instead collected enough scientific and technological knowledge, various top science and technologies, and the final formation of the cold prison peacock mother soul seed. It's time to leave. Garen no longer had any nostalgia, and his soul instantly left his body. Like invisible smoke, it flew out from above the crystal and flew silently towards the direction he came from. This was not the dream travel like before, but a real and complete death. Garen's own soul took the initiative to leave Nanosawa's body and flow towards the home planet from whence he came. Not long after, a black hole in space suddenly emerged, sucking Garen's soul directly into it and jumping towards the home star. The White King did not stop him. As the King of Crystal, Garen had the ability to travel through dreams. Even if he stopped him, he could instantly travel to the members of the Red Snow Alliance and then leave. The result would be meaningless. He just looked up at the jumping black hole in the sky without making any movement. He didn't know what he was thinking. The King of Crystals, the King of Lies, from the beginning to the end, only a few hundred years, like a dazzling epiphyllum that only blooms for a moment. Standing in front of the crystal, the White King didn't speak for a long time. It wasn't until he completely sensed that the space-time black hole where Garen jumped completely disappeared that he turned around and left slowly. The void crystal is still getting stronger and stronger, constantly improving the nature of confinement and devouring. This void crystal will one day evolve into an unprecedented and terrifying black hole. Black holes do not just refer to one type of celestial body. Any celestial body that has a huge gravitational force and can attract and swallow even light can be called a black hole. Because there is no reflection of light, it naturally looks dark. But no one knows what is inside. It could be caused by the collapse of a star, or it could be caused by the self-destruction of the eternal motioner. It is more likely to be caused by many, many other factors. It's just that humans call all matter that looks black and has terrifying gravitational devouring power black holes. Neither the White King nor Garen are interested in these anymore. The general trend has been achieved, and their respective tasks and goals have been achieved. As for the rest, it doesn't matter anymore. Home star edge. The star exudes endless golden light. In the black space at the edge, as several meteorites are slowly pulled towards the sun and pass by, a faint distortion appears in the void of space. Hiss. Suddenly, a black crack opened directly in the void, and traces of invisible and strange aura flew out of it. On a soul level invisible to the naked eye. Garen flew out of the rift, carefully calculating the time-space point of the Mother River that he had broken through when he came to this world. The Mother River traverses the entire time and space, connecting countless universes, parallel, vertical, and different in height and size, all connected to countless branches of the entire Mother River. What Garen has to do now is to find the little space-time loophole left behind when he came to this world, and then use this loophole to rush back and leave this world. The energy machine Mark is running at a high speed. As the pinnacle of the energy machine master, Garen's energy machine Mark has reached an unprecedented level of terror. Its computing power is comparable to the most powerful quantum computer in the human alliance. Of course, once it is fully operational, the consumption of energy and consciousness is also very terrifying, and top-notch beings simply cannot afford this consumption. Garen now understands a little bit of the essence, and can also use the essence of confinement to absorb dark energy and devour it directly. When the void crystal merged with his devouring talent, he also more or less integrated the void crystal's special ability to absorb the dark energy of the void texture. Instead of just like in the beginning, the dark energy can only be absorbed by relying on the shadow dragon to turn it into a physical entity. Discover the target. Soon the energy Mark gave the result, and the space-time point was in a void not far away. This world does not involve soul research. The closest thing to the soul is will, but that is only an external aspect of the soul, and it is only the surface. Maybe it will not involve the true and most essential soul until many, many years later, so that we may be able to find out this time and space point and discover the existence of the Mother River. But that may be a long, long time later. A faint white light flashed in the V-shape between Garen's eyebrows, and his eyes locked on the loophole in the void in the distance. He didn't move because he didn't know how to open this vulnerability point. If he accidentally used the wrong force, it would probably cause the vulnerability to be destroyed, and then he would be in real trouble. The best way is to open it from the inside out. So Galleon waited. Wait for the moment when the vulnerability point opens from the inside. The void creatures that can sense his soul ring should also exist at the level of the soul body. Normally humans cannot see or touch them. Only fellow souls can sense them. Garen had previously felt that there were Legion-level soul void creatures in this world, and there must be such existences on the banks of the Mother River. What he has to do now is to release his breath and wait for these soul void creatures to appear and help. He opens vulnerability points. Time passes little by little. Garen still maintained his original movements and posture. 1 day has passed, 2 days have passed, and a month has passed. In the entire space, there is almost no big change in a month. Only the nearest planet nearby has some displacement, and the rest is still the same as before, without any abnormality. Roar. Suddenly, a faint roar of a wild beast floated over from a very far distance. Garen finally regained his energy and became highly focused. Tear it apart, and circles of transparent ripples suddenly rise from the void point, spreading in all directions. A huge black leopard with horns slowly poked its head out from the ripples. Roar. He roared at Garen, and the sound of his pure soul directly crossed a large distance and penetrated into Garen's ears. We're finally here. Garen advanced instead of retreating, his soul turning into a white line and shooting towards the black-horned leopard. A huge peacock silhouette appeared behind him. Poof. The peacock's pointed beak pecked forward like lightning. The sharp beak that was originally only a few thousand meters wide instantly expanded to tens of thousands of meters. With a sharp bite, it pecked the black leopard and dragged it away. Ouch! The leopard screamed, but at the mere Legion level it was unable to resist Garen's strength. As a demon king, Garen was far from being able to resist at the Legion level at this moment. The soul seed ring directly exerts force, rippling out circles of pure soul power. The cold prison peacock mother pulled her huge upper body back, and actually pulled the leopard out of the ripples like a carrot, raised her head and swallowed it in one gulp. The entire lower body of the peacock mother is connected to the small Galleon body, giving people an extremely uncoordinated feeling, like an infinitely enlarged version of Aladdin. The leopard that swallowed it also seemed to have entered a bottomless pit and disappeared. In the void, after the leopard was dragged out, the ripples suddenly became more rapid, getting smaller and smaller, becoming more and more urgent, and seemed to be about to close. Garen dove in without hesitation. The peacock behind his whole body faded and disappeared, and his soul and body seemed to plunge into the water, disappearing in the ripples without causing any splash. Guru. Bubbles floated upward from Garen's mouth. Surrounded by a familiar green liquid, it is the water of the Mother River, full of endless vitality. This is the river of life, the beginning and the end of all things. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1149. Once again returning to the Mother River after hundreds of years, Garen felt the familiar power of corrosion and assimilation. This power was so huge that even he could only protect himself now. Go with the flow. He looked back at the hole in the Mecha universe, which had healed to the size of a fist and was still healing at an accelerated rate. Surrounded by endless light green, nothing can be seen or heard. Only the sound of the gushing river kept vibrating in the soul's ears. Garen raised his head and looked up. The river was not far away. Through the water of the Mother River, he could see the colorful space-time wall outside. Roar. A violent roar sounded again. Garen was horrified to see that large cracks appeared in the space-time wall in an instant, and then a hole seemed to be forcibly punched through by an external force. An almost endless arm stretched out from the hole. It was a brass-colored arm, with a faint metallic luster all over its body, and it continued to extend and fly downward. Bang! The water in the river splashed high as it was struck by the arm. The arm actually reached straight towards Garen to grab him. It seems to have infinite length, wrapped with terrifyingly huge soul power. It's a creature from the void. Garen knew something was wrong, so he quickly rotated his soul ring, bursting out a stream of pure soul power, wrapping his own soul, and hurried forward in the Mother River. With a swish, he just escaped the grasp of the giant hand. Just the edges were lightly rubbed. But just for this small nudge, the soul power on the arm was like tarsal maggots, instantly decomposing into densely packed dozens of transparent maggots, adhering to the outer wall of Galen's soul power, devouring Galen's body with big mouthfuls. Soul power. A dizzy feeling came over him, and Garen instinctively knew that this was due to excessive consumption of soul power. The existence that can break the barrier of the Mother River is definitely not something he can compete with now. We must leave immediately. He made a cruel decision and directly separated the part of the attached soul power and threw it far away. He himself moved forward quickly in the river like a swimming fish. Fortunately, the soul ring can now continuously generate new soul power. It is no longer like before that it can only use the soul power stored in the soul seed. Once it is corroded by the Mother River, it can only close its eyes and wait for death. But now it is different. Long is completely able to continuously generate new soul power to support himself in swimming longer and further in the Mother River. Boom! The river water stirred violently, and the huge life force of the Mother River surged crazily towards the arm that invaded the body. Garen looked back and saw that the brass-colored arm was being rapidly corroded by countless green river water, revealing the black texture of the inner layer, and a large amount of red blood dripping down in large groups, melting into Mother River. It dyes the surrounding green river water into a dark color. Roar. The unknown being let out a roar of pain and could only retract its arm. The palm of its hand quickly separated from the water of the Mother River, and with its hand full of blood, it was retracted from the hole in the space-time wall. The broken holes were quickly and automatically repaired by the power of the Mother River, and they were restored as before. The waves in the river gradually subsided. Garen dived under the water and breathed a sigh of relief. He had just fallen from the top of the world to the bottom and was being hunted. He had never felt this feeling in hundreds of years. One moment he was one of the 26 people at the top of the Mecha world, and now he has become a runaway like a lost dog. Sure enough, time and space is so vast, it encompasses everything. Garen sighed in his heart, and calculated the losses. The energy mark came into effect quickly, because this mark is composed of consciousness, and consciousness is also a part of the plague's soul power. It is a small branch, so it can still remain and use Garen's soul power to operate. However, at this moment, this imprint is also gradually moving slowly as it moves away from the mecha world. After all, its operation and calculation rules, many laws and rules are designed according to the rules of the mecha universe. Once the rules change, it is considered that its automatic repair ability is strong enough without instant paralysis. It's like the rule of this universe is that the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second, while that universe is 900,000 kilometers. Or the rule of this universe is that 1 plus 1 equals 2, but in that universe 1 plus 1 equals 3. Of course, the latter does not have such exaggerated changes, but it can still explain this problem. The reason why Galleon's soul seed can be used universally in all universes is because it is the most basic rule of the source, abandoning all other non-common parts, leaving only the unified law that is uniformly applicable to all universes. This is where the warlocks are truly great. What they master is the law of power that can be used universally by many universes. In the Mother River, time is meaningless and everything flows. Galleon slowly swam in the river, swimming against the river in the direction from which he came. He was originally washed away by the river to the most barren mecha universe on the branch of the Mother River, but now if he wants to leave, he must go upstream. After traveling through so many worlds, he has become accustomed to it from the novelty at the beginning to the numbness now. As for the purpose, Garen has long forgotten what the original purpose was. Why did he plunge into the Mother River in the first place? Why did he choose to continue crossing the river? He could not remember the purpose and meaning. Too many new memories have washed away that earliest persistence until the shadow is almost invisible. Garen was swimming upstream and thinking slowly. Is it for the war between Guyinduo and the void creatures? Or simply to experience life in different worlds? Or maybe it's to find the reason why you traveled through time in the first place. Maybe even finding a way back. While swimming, Garen's thoughts were flowing rapidly. The operation of the energy mark was getting slower and slower. Most of the functions were stagnant and damaged due to the lack of rules. Only the most basic computing power remained, and the computing power was it is equivalent to less than 1/10,000th of the original, but it has already surpassed the supercomputers of the Earth back then. Occasionally, he would encounter void beings trying to catch galleons like before in the Mother River, but he would avoid them all with almost no chance. However, Garen continued to think, becoming more and more confused and sluggish. The more he searches, the less he can find the meaning of his continued existence. Everything is repeated over and over again. Apart from pursuing stronger power, he could not find any greater value for his existence. What do I want? He asked himself. When he asked this question, according to calculations, it was already the third year since he entered the Mother River. He no longer knew where he had drifted. There is always endless green river water around, with no living creatures, and only occasionally some debris can be seen flowing by. Most of these objects did not last long and quickly melted in the river water. During the entire drift, the only living creatures that can be encountered are the occasional void fishermen. Each of these existences is extremely huge, and each one has at least dozens of soul seeds, and they are not even the lowest level of soul seeds. Soul seeds are divided into three stages: variegated, colorless, and unified color. Garen himself belongs to the most elementary variegated stage. His soul seeds simply form soul rings. They are the lowest level among demon kings. If you want to upgrade, you need to collect at least 5 soul seeds to form a large soul ring, and then eliminate the miscellaneous colors before you can upgrade to the colorless stage. As for the void fishermen who appeared outside the Mother River, they were in the colorless stage at last. Each of them did not have more than 10 soul seeds, and they were too embarrassed to show up. As for the weaker ones, Garen guessed, they were probably those with less than this number of soul species, and they were self-aware and would not take the initiative to seek abuse. The Mother River barrier is also divided into strong and weak areas. The weaker ones will not have any benefit except being hurt in vain. This kind of drifting is boring, and Garin sometimes even expects the sudden appearance of fishermen to bring him more interest. These beings moved slowly because they were not entangled with the power of the mother river. The stupid big ones who were fooled around by him became Galen's only medicine one by one. But the consumption of soul power is not infinite after all. More than 5 years later, Garin felt that his soul power had begun to decline, and the generation of soul rings gradually could not keep up with the consumption. He suddenly understood that he could no longer drift aimlessly. With his soul ring and his identity as a void stalker, if he stayed in one place for a long time, he would be a top bait to attract soul ring level void creatures to a certain extent. To address this threat, Garin set up a simulation model and calculated that he could not stay in a world for more than 200 years at most, otherwise he would attract nearby soul ring level void creatures. The void creatures and the ancient Yinduo civilization definitely have a strong hold for confrontation. It is impossible for me to be the only inheritor. If we can find other inheritors, we can truly unite and resist the attacks of the void creatures together. With this idea in mind, Garin began to pay attention to the countless universes flowing outside the mother river barrier around him, trying to find among them the universes that also carried the aura of soul seeds. Such a universe is easy to find, because the soul power breath cannot be possessed by just any universe, and Garin's Void Stalker plays the role of a super olfactory locator at this time. Combined with the energy machine mark, it can detect extremely subtle details. A trace of possible soul power could be discerned in the cosmic aura. Although he knew that such a search was very unlikely, Garin finally had a new goal, and it was no longer as confused and decadent as at the beginning. Time passed slowly. Garin's soul ring produced less and less soul power, and the body he could protect became less and less. It became thinner and thinner. I don't know how long it took, but the opportunity he was waiting for finally appeared. Puff! A huge black octopus plunged its tentacles into the water of the mother river and rushed towards Garin. The tentacles were covered with densely packed and countless small suckers, which swept up a huge suction force and surged towards Garin. Looking for death, Garin sneered as he watched the tentacles release their attraction in the mother river. Releasing suction in such a dense mother river? I really think I have lived long enough. He sarcastically said that if you stay alone for a long time, you like to talk to yourself, otherwise you may forget how to talk to yourself after a long time. As if to confirm Garin's taunt, the black tentacle was not caught, but absorbed a huge amount of water from the mother river in an instant. The entire tentacle swelled up, getting bigger and thicker. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1150. Zizi. Zizi. Countless tiny white cracks appeared on the surface of the tentacles. Don't let me see you again, the tentacle owner roared angrily. His violent will violently shook the water of the mother river below to create countless ripples. Peng. The green river water all over the sky exploded from the inside of the tentacles, turning into a rain of blood all over the sky, scattering on the surface of the mother river, stirring up a large area of dense ripples. The remaining tentacles quickly retracted. He instantly disappeared from the opened barrier hole. The hole narrowed rapidly, and colorful streams of light could be seen outside. I didn't know what they were. Just when Garin thought everything was calm as usual and continued to drift, suddenly a faint and clear breath of soul power quickly appeared outside the cave entrance. Garin was stunned. The nerve reaction speed far exceeds the speed of light and reacts immediately. Without any hesitation, he gathered up all the soul power in his body and turned it into jet power behind him. His whole body was like a fish jumping out of the water. There was a crash. His entire body turned into a white line and shot towards the hole in the barrier above. All abilities in the Mother River cannot be used, because the laws of other universes have no effect here, and only the rules of great unity can take effect. Garen's imprisonment essence and the innate ability of the cold hell peacock mother are not affected, but they require a physical body to be used, and a pure soul body cannot do anything about it. Therefore, in the Mother River, the only thing he can use is the soul power generated by the soul ring. This is the same even if the strongest void creature comes. This is also the key reason why Muhi can protect the existence of the ancient Yinduo true spirit. Garen was afraid that he would not have enough strength, so he exploded all his soul power at once. His whole body almost turned into lightning, and shot into the black hole in the barrier in the blink of an eye. Puff! There was a muffled sound in his head, and Garen's eyes were filled with rainbow-like light, and he couldn't see anything else. The universe outside the cave entrance is no longer the universe of the big octopus just now. In just a few seconds, a large amount of colorful light has flowed outside the cave. Now that Garen can sense the soul power of the universe, he has long been unaware of it. Another strange place after passing through so many universes. The colorful streams of light around him kept passing by. Garen stretched out his hand and tried to catch the streams of light, but he couldn't touch anything. The stream of light lasted for more than 10 minutes, and dark spots gradually appeared in front of him. Some of these spots were gray, some were black, and they kept passing by Garen's side. As time goes by, the spots become more numerous and denser. Hiss! Suddenly there was a flower in front of his eyes, and Garen suddenly felt that the front was bright. The colorful stream of light disappeared instantly, and right in front was a huge, empty, dark, and endless space. In the center of space, there is a huge planet with purple-red light suspended. Garen couldn't help but look back. Behind him was the endless darkness of space, and he could vaguely see the thin space ripples disappearing and fading. Sure enough, the place where the water of the Mother River connects must be where the life planet exists. Garen understood in his heart, only after the death of life can it be integrated into the Mother River and enter a new cycle, and the Mother River is also constantly flowing. Flow conveys life. He jumped towards the only purple planet and flew towards it. A floating sun star not far away attracted his attention. The light emitted by the star was golden, and there were many black spots on its surface, making it look like a kumquat covered with mold. Here Garen suddenly frowned slightly. What a strong rule! A V-shaped white mark appeared between his eyebrows, but it dimmed as soon as it appeared. Garen closed his eyes and carefully felt the difference from the rules of the previous universe. After just a few dozen minutes, he opened his eyes again. Awesome! The similarity with the rules of the Mecha universe is about 53%. Most of the functions of the mechanical mark cannot be used. Except for basic computing power, anything with extraordinary power or pure energy has extremely strict rules. The rule of. He looked at the kumquat-like sun, and the dazzling light made him squint his eyes slightly. This kind of universe is even stricter than the vampire world, and the bonding force between matter is astonishingly strong. It's probably impossible to rely on other means to leverage pure energy. He let his body rely on inertia to fly towards the purple-red planet. Looking at the purple-red planet from a distance, if it weren't for the interstellar dust that kept passing by on both sides, Garen would not have been able to recognize that he was moving. Without the jumping ball, no ability can be used except soul power. No, even the soul power is suppressed, and anything in the form of pure energy cannot be separated from matter. It is really an extreme world. Garen frowned, carefully distinguish the laws of this universe. However, I have accumulated some knowledge from several worlds and can still use it. Self-protection should be no problem. As long as I find the individual power system of this universe, I can improve it quickly. But if I want to reach the previous height, there may be some difficulties. It's just a pity that in such a world, I can't use extraordinary power, nor can other natures, and certainly not void creatures. Safety is absolutely no problem. It's just that if you want to leave this world independently, it will probably be difficult. This made Garen intuitively feel that he had made a mistake in coming here. The huge soul power around him is being consumed rapidly, even faster than in the Mother River. Because nothing in the form of pure energy is allowed to exist here for a long time, Garen knew that it would be difficult for a soul like himself to survive here for too long. We must find a new body as soon as possible. He used his soul power to explode violently behind him. Laugh. The transparent shimmer exploded, and Garen's entire body was ejected instantly, accelerating to a terrifying level. Because he is now a soul body, his own weight is infinitely close to zero and extremely weak, so the direct explosion of soul power and the huge impact caused him to soar to a terrifying extreme speed. As he continued to approach the purple-red planet, some inexplicable scenes and fragments began to appear in front of Garen's eyes again. The memory of the planet is here again and can only be received in the soul state. Garen endured the huge flow of information pouring into his brain, and was no stranger to this sudden memory. He also encountered such a situation when he traveled through the world several times before. But this time it seems different. The memory of this planet is terrifyingly long, and it seems to have existed wherever the entire universe exploded. With the influx of information, in addition to the general situation of the planet, a large amount of related information about the universe also flooded into Garen's mind. Although these were only fragments, in just a few dozen minutes, Garen's whole person seemed to it has gone through a long period of history of the entire planet and universe from its birth to the present. There is only one living planet in this universe. Garen endured his headache and stared at the huge purple-red planet in front of him in amazement. According to the remaining information, this planet is the center of the universe and the only living planet in the entire universe. Everything about the general situation flowed through Garen's mind instantly. This is an ordinary but extraordinary world. At least the reality of this world is much simpler than the previous worlds. The general trend of the entire planet all originates from the four cornerstones. To put it simply, there are four people. Four extraordinary beings who have been constantly reborn and resurrected on the planet. They hold the ancient divine symbols of the universe and possess incredible power. Each of the four represents the four most basic forces of the entire planet and even the universe. Apart from them, there are no other extraordinary beings. They are the beginning of all legends. It was also the source of Garen's feeling of soul power. The soul power aura I felt earlier is there. Garen immediately settled on his position. Four cornerstones. What a wonderful rule! With his final admiration, his entire soul accelerated again, turned into an invisible light, and fell straight towards the planet. Suzuran City, Sri Lanka. In an old courtyard on the outskirts of the city, a dark-skinned, yellow-skinned man was holding a 15 or 16-year-old boy with glasses in his hands. His face was solemn, and he kept shouting quickly and powerfully in a language with a somewhat difficult accent. The scorching sunlight shone on the two of them, and a faint smell of sweat rose up. The man's brows almost furrowed and he quickly picked up the boy and walked to the shade of the yard. Putting it gently on the hot ground, the man quickly ran into the inner room and soon came out with a basin of cold water. There was also a white towel in the basin. The towel was washed a little yellow and looked a little old. Wow! The towel wrung out the water and gently wiped the sweat on the boy's face. The boy was handsome, but more of an ordinary boy. His complexion was a little pale, as if he hadn't been exposed to much sunday. His lips were severely chapped, and his eyes were closed tightly. He was obviously suffering from heat stroke. Call. Suddenly a cool breeze blew by. At an instant that no one could see, an invisible light fell straight from the sky, pierced deep into the boy's eyebrows, and disappeared directly into it. The man didn't feel anything, but still carefully wiped the sweat from the boy's body. After a while, it seemed that the cool wet towel had an effect, and the boy finally trembled a few times. Shway shway. He suddenly woke up hazily and screamed hoarsely. Water? Here. Come, drink slowly." Slowly the middle-aged man quickly took the water glass prepared on one side and put it to the boy's mouth. "How many times have I told you not to sleep in the sun in the yard, but I don't listen no matter what," the man complained in a nagging voice, completely different from his serious appearance. The boy didn't speak any more. After drinking some water, he closed his eyes and fell asleep. The middle-aged man shook his head helplessly, picked him up, went directly into the house, and put him on the mat bed in the bedroom. He reached out and touched his forehead again. He felt that it had cooled down, so he went out with confidence. After working so hard for a while, he himself was sweating profusely and had to take a cold shower quickly. The man's footsteps gradually moved away, and he entered another room, and there was a slamming of the door closing. The boy on the mat slowly opened his eyes. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1151. It's a new beginning. A voice filled with vicissitudes of life, nostalgia, and boredom sounded from the boy's mouth. After choosing for so long, according to the general trend, this body is the best point to intervene. A vague V-shaped white mark flashed between the boy's eyebrows, leaving no trace. Memories of the boy flashed through Garen's mind. Kong Sci-fi, 17 years old, introverted and repressive, taciturn, a sophomore at Switzerland City No. 3 Middle School. My grades are below average, I'm not good at sports, I like reading comics, drawing, and sleeping. After Garen quickly scanned the messy memory contents, his focus fell on Kong Sci-fi's family. Kong Sci-fi's father, Kong Yuan, raised him and his sister alone. He worked in an oil company and his income was moderate. He is an ordinary and simple good man. His mother died early in childbirth, just when Sci-fi was born. The focus is Kong Xingxiu, Kong Sci-fi's sister. This character is an important figure that Garen vaguely sensed when he was watching the memory of the planet. Because the memory was too complicated, and the rules of this universe were too strict, he only vaguely saw many fragments, and failed to see most of the main content clearly. I just know that one of the four cornerstones will come into contact with Kong Xingxiu at some point in the future. In the battle between the four of them, Kong Xingxiu occupies a relatively important role. It should take less than a few years. By then, we will be able to tell whether the four cornerstones are my kind. With a hint of expectation, Garen began to carefully feel the state of this body. After such an inspection, Galen's face suddenly darkened. No wonder I don't resist at all when I occupy this body. This body is actually in such a bad state. I took a look at the status data displayed on the talent ability. Kong Sci-fi strength 0.2, agility 0.3, constitution 0.1, intelligence 1.1, potential 0%, soul limit 50. Garen took a deep breath. Except for the fact that his intelligence has reached the level of an adult, the rest is simply terrible, no different from late-stage cancer. He resisted the urge to curse and began to mobilize the remaining soul power to nourish the body. Since forming the soul ring, his soul power can finally be freely mobilized and used to nourish the physical body. The essence of the physical body can produce the god as the soul, and the god can naturally replenish the essence of the body, but the conversion in the middle is very expensive. Especially in this world where the rules are so strict that they are abnormal. Fortunately, the form of pure energy inside the body is not very restricted, and is equivalent to the energy attached to matter. Garen checked his soul power reserves and found that there were about 53 units. Each unit in the mecha world is enough to nourish the body of an adult and heal all its hidden wounds. However, if the soul power denies the body, there will be an 80% loss. In addition, the rules of the universe are abnormal. At most, 5% can affect the body, which is good. Damn it, he couldn't help it. He cursed. 5%, which means that after his last remaining soul power is exhausted, there will no longer be any additional amount to nourish and strengthen this body. The rules here are extremely strict. There are only 4 people in the entire world with extraordinary power, and they have extraordinary power supported by the entire universe. Even so, it doesn't show much of an exaggerated effect. Garen actually knew in his heart that he should have expected it. In addition, if you want to restore and accumulate new soul power here, the recovery speed of the soul ring is horribly slow, plus the terrifying loss. If you want to use it to nourish your body, you will have to wait for this time. It seems that I have to make good use of the pharmacology and chemistry I learned in other worlds. After living for so many years, I can be considered a top biochemist. Garen finally found a way out, and he could use the substances in this world to strengthen himself. It doesn't have to be pure energy nourishment. Thinking of this, he directly released all the reserved soul power in his body and spread it to all the internal organs of the body. There were no light, shadow, and sound effects, but you could see Kong Xiaofei, who was possessed by Garen. His originally pale face gradually became slightly reddish, and his chapped lips began to look shiny. The effect is immediate. Garen watched as the body's condition improved at a speed visible to the naked eye. As time goes by, the soul power becomes less and less and weaker. And the attributes of the body are getting higher and higher. When the last trace of soul power is exhausted, Kong Xiaofei, strength 0.5, agility 0.6, constitution 0.4, intelligence 1.4, potential 0%, soul limit 50. Properties are only slightly better. Why hasn't it changed yet? Garen was stunned. This was a soul ring that he had worked hard to save for several worlds. It would be a real tragedy if the soul power generated by the soul ring was wasted all of a sudden. But when he carefully felt the subtle and slow changes in his body, he immediately understood. The rules of this world are like this. It is impossible to have a huge change like before, and the abnormal phenomenon where the intermediate process is almost ignored. The changes here are happening slowly and normally bit by bit. Even if all his soul power is nourished, it is impossible to turn a seriously ill patient into a lively and normal person in an instant. Similarly, only with the recovery process of the body can he slowly and normally return to the state reached by his soul power. In other words, if you master the tricks and rules in other worlds, you can cross many processes in an instant, leverage other forces, and produce miracles. But in this world, the only thing there is normality. No matter how fast the stimulus knocks on the door, you can't go beyond the inevitable. The process creates miracles. Garen lay on his back on the mat. Since he would not be able to recover quickly for a while, he could only lie down and rest like this. Fortunately, with the nourishment of soul power, this body will return to normal within a few days even if it does not eat or drink, and at the same time, its quality will continue to improve until the soul power is exhausted. The energy mark can also use basic calculation functions. However, it requires soul power support. It seems that it will be impossible to take care of both in the future. Garen was helpless. Lying on the mat, I felt the constant waves of fatigue and weakness coming from this body. For a moment I didn't want to move anything. Time passed slowly, and soon there was the sound of a key opening the door from the yard outside. "Thank you for sending me off, please come back." It was a nice female voice. She was young, probably only 18 or 19 years old. "Remember the concert on Saturday? You are one of our protagonists, you must come," came an old male voice. "I'll try my best, sorry teacher." "Okay, no more nonsense, I'm going to see the others off first." "Yes. Please walk slowly." Then the sound of footsteps and the sound of car engines quickly faded away. Boom. The courtyard door is closed. "Xiaoxiu is back," Kong Yuan's voice came from the courtyard living room. "Well, how is Xiaofei?" The girl's voice was cold. "It's much better now, I put him to sleep." "I'll go see him." Kong Xingxiu's voice slowly approached. Garen recalled the information about Kong Xingxiu and his relationship with Kong Xiaofei. Kora Shinyuki, 17 years old, a talented violinist, a senior in Suzerain City No. 1 Middle School. However, He has participated in 3 regional classical student music competitions and won the first place 3 times in a row. Her talent is gradually revealed in the next 2 years. She will become a famous classical violin genius girl throughout the Red Country. Finally, at the age of 24, she will become a beautiful violinist famous in the world music industry. He has a cold personality and has a very average relationship with his younger brother Kong Xiaofei, even a little distant. You are such a dazzling sister that you can't even open your eyes. No wonder this younger brother is so introverted and has low self-esteem and is taciturn. A thought flashed through Garen's mind. Soon he saw a young girl in a white skirt walking to the bedroom door and looking inside. The girl has shawl red hair, bangs on her forehead, and calm eyes with a hint of worry. The white skirt on her body perfectly highlighted her young figure. It was a very simple white skirt, without any lace lines, pure white, with only a pure black belt around her waist. "Are you feeling better?" Kong Xingxiu asked in a low voice. Seeing that Garen was awake, the worry in her eyes disappeared slightly. "Much better," Garen replied. Kong Xingxiu nodded and left. The only dialogue between the two siblings is like this. It seems that both parties have become accustomed to it. Ever since they were young, ever since they could talk, the dialogue between Kong Xiaofei and his sister has been like this, short and boring. It turns out that the hair on this body is red. Garen then realized that his hair turned fiery red. From the day he suffered from heat stroke, Garen took time off to recuperate at home. Kong Yuan works from 9 to 5 every day, while Kong Xingxiu is busy preparing for academic exams. Both of them are extremely busy, but Kong Xiaofei is the only one who has nothing to do in the yard at home. One of his purposes in coming to this world is to find inheritors of the same kind. Even if they are not of the same kind, at least they are beings with soul power. He has planned that if the other party is not the inheritor of the same kind, then he will seize and absorb the other party's soul power. Add new soul power and even soul seeds to your soul ring. The reason why he wanted to possess Kong Xiaofei's body was because he was a mortal man. In the future, when Kong Xingxiu comes into contact with one of the 4 cornerstones, Kong Xiaofei will die from an accident on the first night of their meeting. And what killed him was one of the 4 cornerstones. With such an identity, there is no need to look around. The only 4 cornerstones of the entire planet will naturally come to you, which saves Galleon a lot of trouble. The second purpose is naturally to avoid soul ring level void creatures. At the same time, think carefully about the path you want to take next. However, what made Garen somewhat miscalculated was that the rules of this universe were so strict that the soul power brought by his possession was far from what he expected. In this way, it will be really difficult to reach the level of fighting against the 4 cornerstones in 2 years. After all, Garen didn't know what the strength of those 4 people was. Since becoming possessed, Garen has had very little contact with Yukino Sara. He can only see people in the morning and evening every day. The life here is also similar to the combination of China and Japan in the earth, with rice as the main meal and sashimi as the main ingredient. Stir-fried vegetables, glutinous rice balls and everything. A week passed in a blink of an eye, and there was basically no useful communication. Garen's health also began to gradually improve. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1152. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Galen sat up and did push UPS, counting numbers in the yard. It's the weekend, this week's vacation is coming to an end, and he has to go to school to make up for the corresponding courses. Although it doesn't matter to Galen, it will reduce the time for exercise and recovery. After finishing 10 push UPS, he stood up with both hands and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Although their physical fitness has improved, they still need to be mentally prepared for Kong Yuan and the others. They cannot just do nothing and their bodies will get better out of thin air. That would make people suspicious. You got up so early, Xiaofei. Kong Yuan yawned and walked out of the room. Wearing black pajamas. He glanced at the sky, but it wasn't bright yet. What do you want to eat? Shall I buy it? Bread and eggs, Garen said casually. Kong Yuan nodded. Go and see if your sister is up. Ask her what she wants. Yeah. I'll go take a look. Garen pressed the t-shirt on his body, letting the black t-shirt stick to his skin, sucking away the sweat, and strode towards Kong Xingxiu's room. Bang bang. No one answered the knock on the door. The door opened by itself and seemed to be open. That's right, the weather is too hot to stay in the room all the time. Garan knocked on the door again. Bang bang bang. Who? A voice that had not yet woken up came from inside. Me, Garen responded. Not long after, Kong Xingxiu opened the door, her hair disheveled and she was wearing a white nightgown. What's up? What's for breakfast? Dad asked you. Same as you. Kong Xingxiu closed the door with a bang. Seems a little angry. Garen returned to the living room inexplicably and relayed the original words to Kong Yuan. I don't know why Kong Xingxiu is angry. Maybe it was because I was tired of waking up. After breakfast, Kong Yuan went out to buy groceries. Only Garen and Kong Xingxiu were left sitting in the yard basking in the morning sun and drinking tea. The light green tea was shaken by the galleons in the cup, almost swaying out of the cup wall every time, which looked very thrilling. Just drink water, don't play. Kong Xingxiu sat upright, holding the cup in both hands, and said seriously. Garen put down the teacup helplessly. He couldn't say that he was exercising the accuracy of his body control. Sitting in the yard, the two of them stared at each other. Because Garen was still wearing glasses, his messy hair was a little too long, covering part of his face. In addition, the glasses were a bit too big. The combination of the two almost covered his entire face. The face is covered. The clothes were also a little messy, and the sweat-wet t-shirt on his body was a little dry, giving off a strong smell of sweat. Kong Xingxiu is dressed in white clothes and white trousers, and her hair is simply tied into a bunch with a black ribbon hanging behind her back. With her delicate face and upright sitting posture, she gives people a dignified feeling. Is your pocket money enough recently? Really unable to find a topic to talk about, Kong Xingxiu, as the older sister, spoke first. It's not enough. I have some here. That's enough, Garen replied briefly. Then there was silence. The sun gradually turned half of the yard golden, and the cry of cicadas could be heard from the only big brown tree in the yard. I'm going to take a shower. Kong Xingxiu stood up and walked towards the back room. Oh. Garen responded and watched her enter the house. He didn't look back until he heard the bathroom door closing. He picked up the teacup and took a sip. He slowly began to adjust his breathing and heartbeat. After a week of recovery, coupled with the promotion and nourishment of soul power, the body has almost recovered and has reached the normal range of this body. Because this body is too deficient and has a lot of damage to its congenital structure, it can only be improved slowly in the days to come. Fortunately, the soul power should not be exhausted just yet. But I can't rely entirely on soul power. I have to choose a secret weapon that can be used as the foundation of my life. Garen had forced himself to wait until now before he began to consider this issue. Only when your body has completely returned to normal can you consider exercising, otherwise it will end up injuring your body instead of exercising. One by one, the Miaoub killing techniques that he had mastered and created himself kept passing through his mind. The rules of this world are harsh. It will take a very long time for the body to be able to resist thermal weapons, which is not advisable. The time is only 2 years, and we need a Miaoub killing technique that can be quickly formed. It must have huge lethality, and it can help me get physical exercise. After searching through all the schools, a sword technique similar to Japanese kendo soon came to Garen's mind. Using the sharpness of weapons to make up for the shortcomings of one's own lack of lethality is indeed the shortest way to develop combat effectiveness. It should be good to follow the agility style. At the level of Garen, although there is no comprehension disc, the level of martial arts has been refined and refined to another spiritual level. Many principles of swordsmanship and boxing are similar. Garen simply combined the essence of many secret martial arts into the sword technique, and soon an extremely complex and precise killing technique gradually took shape. Picking up a broken branch from the ground, Garen began to gesture lightly. Up and down, in all directions, there are thousands of completely different coping skills for various changes, which can cope with various environmental situations. This is a knife technique that is so precise that it can be called precision. There can be no mistakes in the position of every trace. Once a mistake is made, a new knife technique is needed to correct it. The entire sword technique is like opening a chain of locks. A series of locks are finally opened, and the effect is to leverage extraordinary power. Using a mortal body to exert extraordinary power. Of course, this is the original effect of the sword technique, but it is not clear to what extent it can be achieved in this world. Try it and see how far you can go with sheer skill. Garen tried to pick up the branch and began to gesture slowly. The branches continued to draw blurry traces between his fingers. The speed went from slow to fast, and soon became faster and faster, becoming more and more blurry. Wind. Suddenly the branches stopped for an instant. Click. There was a soft sound, and the branch broke, but the expected effect of extraordinary power did not happen. Garen let out a little breath. Although I had expected it a long time ago, I didn't expect that the boundaries of extraordinary power would be so difficult to pry. It is indeed worthy of this universe. He dropped the branch. It seems that we can only pursue pure physical attacks. Ah! Suddenly, a scream from Kong Xingxiu came from the back room. Garen's expression changed slightly, he stood up suddenly and rushed towards the house. The first thing that came to his mind was the 4 possible cornerstones. Could it be that it's time to show up earlier? The water has stopped, Kong Xingxiu's voice came out immediately. But it's too late. Garen had already rushed to the bathroom door and reached out to grab the bathroom door handle. Click. The bathroom door was opened a crack, and Kong Xingxiu looked at Kong Xiaofei at the door in shock. Her entire upper body was covered under a wet white towel, but the lower parts of her legs were not covered, and a few black hairs could be vaguely exposed. Just stopping the water, Garen was also stunned. Looking at Kong Xingxiu's appearance, he was stunned for a moment. Sometimes too fast is a problem. Get out! Kong Xingxiu's cheeks suddenly turned red, pointing outside and yelling loudly. Get out of here! Garen never expected that something like this, which would only happen in a bloody plot, would happen to him. More than 10 minutes later, Kong Xingxiu was sitting in the living room with a puff of snow, sitting opposite him. I can understand how strong the deepest turmoil in an adolescent's heart is. But please don't invest this unexpressed desire in your only biological sister for no reason. Do you know what biological sister means? Or do you? As a 17-year-old boy, you haven't even learned the health education courses in this area. Snapped. She slapped her hand on the table. Kong Xingxiu, the eldest daughter of Kong. I have been trying to establish a dignified image of the eldest daughter in front of you, Kong Xiaofei, and establish a correct and educated outlook on life and values. But what I didn't expect was that those in society and those on the internet an unbearable cancer. Yes, a cancer. It can make my only brother and one of my closest relatives undergo such horrific changes. Can you understand my current feelings? Huh? Kong Xiaofei. What am I asking you? Kong Xingxiu noticed that Kong Xiaofei was actually distracted. Distracted? Her only brother dared to lose focus while she was preaching? Unforgivable. Bang. She slapped her hands on the table hard, making a loud noise, and the table shook slightly. Every day when I go home, I suppress my desire to speak and all impolite and uneducated behaviors, in order to establish the noblest outlook on life, worldview, and values for the only man in our Kong family. But now you, look at yourself. Forget about being slovenly, you will learn this naturally in the future, but now you are reduced to peeping on your sister taking a bath. Her voice suddenly rose to an eighth tone. I said, can you please lower your voice? Garen smiled helplessly. I didn't mean to peek at you washing. It's peeping. Kong Xingxiu seemed to have finally burst out of his desire to preach that had been suppressed for a long time. Although they are just the same two words, there is only one word difference between the two words, but the serious nature of them is completely different. She let out a long breath. I'm thinking about telling my father directly. It's better not to do it. Garen was speechless. As I said, I didn't want to peep, I just heard you scream. You are making excuses for your bad intentions. Kong Xingxiu took a sip of water. I can understand your mood at the moment. You are always hiding in the corner secretly reading those ulterior readings about death in the light. Although I once thoroughly observed the thoughts of my only brother, but now that I think about it, those things are really disgusting. She made a look of disgust. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1153. But her entire upper body suddenly tilted forward, leaning in front of Garen. Their noses were nose to nose, and their faces were almost touching. I'm very relieved. What are you doing? Garen was startled by her sudden and frightening behavior. He had never seen such a nervous guy in his whole life. Even though he has traveled through so many worlds, this is the first time he has seen someone behave with such a split personality. 1 second he was still cool and dignified, but at this moment it is like he has completely changed. I'm very happy that you, as a man, have finally grown up. Kong Xingxiu grabbed Garen's collar and lifted him up, almost lifting him up in the air. Boom. She let go of Garen and let him sit down on the chair. As a man, I have been hiding deep in my heart and wanted to put the evil desires into my heart. Finally I dared to take that crucial but evil first step. I don't know whether I should be more happy or sad. But one thing I'm sure of. Kong Xingxiu stood up, turned around and walked towards her room. That is, courage is the only thing that makes a boy a man. Courage. Do you know the unlimited right of self-defense? She threw a black pen with her backhand. The pen spun rapidly, drew a straight trajectory, and accurately landed on the sofa next to Galen. As a man, you must have the awareness to stand up for girls anytime and anywhere. How can you fight without weapons? Arms. Garen picked up the pen and didn't find anything different about it. It was just the most ordinary black pen. Kong Xingxiu turned around. The world only knows that it is not illegal to use the scissors you carry with you in self-defense, but they don't know that the pen is more concealable. Use it skillfully. It will come in handy one day. She waved her hand gracefully, entered her room with a bang, closed the door, and no more movement came out. Garen was speechless as he watched Kong Xingxiu walk into his room, and then looked at the pen in his hand. Weapon? Use this. He couldn't help but think of an extremely appropriate scene in his mind. Night, street. No, no, please. Kong Xingxiu looked pleading and shrank deeper into the alley with tears in her eyes. Several villains gathered around and stared at the little sheep in the urn with lewd smiles. It's very dangerous for a little girl to go out on the street alone in the middle of the night. It seems you need our help to educate you on what safety means. He. Just scream, no one will come to save you even if your throat is broken. Crack. One of the villains showed off a switchblade. In the unlimited right of self-defense, as long as the opponent shows his weapon, it's the best time to counterattack. You only get one chance. Be quick. Ruthless. Allow. A fatal blow. The bright silver ballpoint pen instantly slipped to his hand, and a cold light flashed in Kong Xingxiu's eyes. Ah! Ah! After a few screams, everything in the alley became quiet. Terrible woman. Garen shook his head to clear away the random thoughts in his mind. For some reason, he seemed to feel interesting in his heart. She has a personality, but her appearance is not the same. She seems to have a dual personality. She is also beautiful. It is no wonder that such a special girl would attract one of the four cornerstones to pursue her secretly. Garen touched his chin, as if he felt that the world was a little different this time. That makes sense. Monday, school time. Hiss. Garen was lying on the desk, completely asleep. The teacher's lecture voice in the classroom was automatically played in a loop by him as a lullaby accompaniment. The faint rustle of students taking notes could be heard all around, and the sound continued to stir and feedback in the classroom, giving people a feeling of space. This world is similar to Earth, with a lifestyle that combines Western and Eastern styles. There are thermal weapons, missiles, tanks, and even nuclear weapons. If it weren't for the different country names and geography, Garen would have thought he was in a parallel world on another Earth. These basic knowledge in class are just child's play for Garen. The only thing he needs to pay attention to is not to substitute more advanced formulas and laws from other worlds into the calculations when solving problems, so as not to accidentally cause a world-class sensation. Hey, Faye, I heard that you were seriously injured due to heat stroke. Almost died. Is it true? At the table next to her, one of Kong Xiaofei's few friends, Keslin, was squeezing Galleon with her elbow as if taking notes. False. Garen replied casually, will someone who almost died sit back next to you so quickly? That's right. Keslin nodded slightly. Okay, I want to sleep, don't disturb me, Garen said and fell directly into a deep sleep. In this world, no one knows his true origin, identity, and specialness, so naturally there will be no danger. Threaten. The only trouble now is that one day 2 years from now, one of the four cornerstones will kill Kong Xiaofei in an accident. No need to search, just wait. Waiting until then, we will know whether the four cornerstones are the inheritors of the same kind, or maybe they are void creatures. When I woke up, it was already the end of get out of class, and the teacher had almost given up on a guy like Kong Xiaofei whose academic performance was totally unworthy of expectations. Number 3 middle school was not a good school to begin with, and most of the teachers were just muddle along. Hey, a Faye Xiaolan, a masculine-looking girl came over wearing a black pleated skirt. It's a last-minute hit. Why are you dressed so femininely today? Are you feeling rejuvenated? Keslin greeted with a bright smile. Don't ask me to do last-minute damage. When did I have my second spring? I haven't even started my first spring. The girl's name is Zonbukan, and she is another good friend in the class who plays well with Kong Xiaofei. Because of his masculine appearance, and because he always likes to make the last touch when playing games, he is nicknamed Last Touch. How's it going? Are you feeling better? Zonbukan looked at Kong Xiaofei with concern. Much better, Garen nodded. Would you like to go skating? The Dream Ice Rink is newly renovated today. Let's go see how it is being repaired. Forget it, I have something else to do, you can go on your own. Garen refused immediately. There are still 2 years left. Although he is confident that he will never lose, it is best not to underestimate his opponent if he can. Just try to do your best. Aren't you afraid of being exposed? Wear a skirt to skate. Keslin smiled lewdly. Are you exposed? Zonbukan retorted with his hands on his hips. Look. You dare to lift my skirt if you dare to look at me. Are you responsible? I want to run away after seeing this, unless you go out sideways, Zonbukan sneered. Forget it then. You guys take your time and flirt, I'll take the first step. Garen left the classroom, too lazy to pay attention to the two people arguing behind him. In Kong Xiaofei's memory, these two joked on a large scale that even many adults could not match. All the way up, directly to the rooftop. Garen pushed open the iron door, walked to the railing, and looked down from above. Except for the 4 cornerstones, there is no power system in this world, only technology. Should I consider joining the government army to sell technology, he thought boredly, as if he had returned to the leisurely life of the Earth period. There is no danger. Even the so-called 4 cornerstones are not very difficult threats in his eyes. Life just moves forward calmly, along the timeline, without twists and turns. He took out his phone and looked himself up and down using the camera mode on it. He has short red hair, large black-rimmed glasses, pale skin, and the collar of his blue and white school uniform is raised high, covering his neck. He is neither tall nor short, and his body shape is neither fat nor thin. The feet were wearing ordinary leather shoes that were out of place and had a lot of white dust and wrinkles on them. It looked like they had been worn for a long time. You can tell at a glance that he is an extremely ordinary middle school student. Self-excited, Garen took off his glasses and unexpectedly discovered that this face was pretty good looking. He has thin eyebrows, big eyes, and a pointed nose, rosy lips, shiny skin and slightly downy skin, which is obviously because his health has improved recently. Forget it, that's it. Continue to practice your previous knife skills. Garen silently began to adjust and control his breathing and endocrine system. The computing power of the energy mark can provide him with the most detailed observation data of the body, and at the same time give him the most appropriate adjustment plan, so that his body can achieve the desired goal in the shortest possible time. The muscles all over his body began to tremble slightly. Different muscles competed with each other and cooperated with each other, forming different directions of force in one body. This is an extremely high-end exercise method that can only be used by masters who have a very precise grasp of themselves. Garen's martial arts realm and the assistance of the weapon mark allowed him to easily meet the requirements. His hand began to move forward slightly, one after another, coherently but with a cold and decisive style. A week passed quickly. Every day was wasted in the bickering and flirting between Kezelan and Zongbukin. Garen would go to the rooftop to practice his sword skills every time he had free time. With his level, he naturally mastered the essentials immediately. There are only 3 stages in the entire sword technique. 1. Rough knowledge. To master tens of thousands of different response methods, the accuracy must be high. 2. Skilled. You can use different knife styles for free combination to cope with external changes. 3. Transparent. He has completely mastered all the knife moves, turning everything into instinct, and uses the knife moves as a conditioned reflex like lightning. Garen's own martial arts realm has already surpassed the 3rd level of the sword technique, so the only thing he needs to do is to master all the sword techniques and memorize them into the instinct of his body. This requires a lot of repeated practice. After all, this is a new body, not the previous one. Besides that, what he needs most is a strong body. And, a knife, a proper knife. The soul power will slowly nourish my body. I can also buy some herbs to make a medicinal soup. I don't know if there are any suitable potions from my previous memory. You can try it. As for the knife problem, you can join the school's unlimited fighting club. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1154. P.S. If I want to hear more of your voices and receive more of your suggestions, search the WeChat public account Dread now and follow it to give more support to Mysterious Journey. This world is very weird. The center of the universe seems to be this planet, and there seems to be only one living planet in the entire universe. Garen didn't know how to describe this feeling, but it felt weird. But with his strength, coming here is considered a vacation anyway, just having fun and waiting for the big trend to start. It was with this attitude that he continued to live as if he were just dawdling. Time flies. 3 weeks passed in the blink of an eye, which was the first month of his arrival in this world. And his sword skills have basically taken shape. Although this body has various limitations, and the improvement of all aspects of quality is surprisingly slow, Garen still uses soul power and other means to improve the quality of his body to a new level. After another day of boring classes, Garen lazily got up from the table. For some reason, as soon as he relaxed, he seemed to not want to move on. Sometimes he was thinking, it's just so simple. It's not a bad life to live in this world once. He took a look at his current attributes. Kongxiafei Strength 1, Agility 1.2, Constitution 1.2, Intelligence 1.5, Potential 0%, Soul Limit 50. Is this the final limit of soul power consumption? It's the level of a normal person. Garen was helpless. He originally thought he could still be lazy, but now it seems that he must work harder. He raised his head and looked around. In the white classroom, several students were chatting in groups, and their chirping sounds were no different from those of birds. Kezelen was still flirting with Zonbuken. The two students at the back were making a blackboard report with their books, and kept scribbling and drawing on them with chalk, which looked very fun. The boys wore white shirts and black pants, and the girls wore white shirts, black skirts, and long black socks. They looked similar to old Japanese school uniforms. It feels like the Holy Orioles Academy back then. Garen breathed out. Review the history of this world again. This planet is divided into 3 continents and 4 oceans. The Red Country, the Slan Country, and the Black Federation are the 3 major countries. The rest are small countries struggling to survive in the cracks. Because it has a chain of nuclear weapons similar to those on Earth, it has always been peaceful. The rest is no different from Earth. Apart from some similarities in customs, basically no connection has been found. The name also feels like a combination of things and things. It's really boring. Garen didn't want to use his brain at all. It was considered a vacation after all, so what was the point of working as hard as before? Snapped. The rubber roller of a girl sitting in front of him fell down and hit the instep of his foot. Garen bent down to pick it up and threw it back to the girl. Thanks. The girl turned around and smiled, not pretty, but very pure. Need not. Garen stood up. It was time to go home. The afternoon sun shone in from the window not far from the side and fell on the back of his hand, feeling warm. Carrying his school bag, he walked out of the classroom alone and walked toward his home. Behind him is the noisy school, and occasionally you can see a few gangsters mingling with students asking for money from passing students. Most of the students nearby unconsciously avoided those places. Galen walked to a vending machine, took out a 1 yuan coin from his trouser pocket, and prepared to throw it in. Suddenly, 2 tall shadows came over from behind and surrounded him. Hey, you're quite rich, buddy. How about making friends? Is it okay to treat each of us to a can of green yogurt? A young man with long hair wearing silver earrings said with a smile. How can 1 can be enough for 1 person? Why do we need 3 cans per person? A fat man next to him chuckled. The 2 of them were wearing all black long-sleeved trousers, and their clothes were baggy. One of them had white hair and the other had silver hair. It was obvious at a glance that they were not good young men. Garen breathed out. Although I have always felt that teaching young gangsters something is not boring, so I have never interfered with you, but if you come to find it on your own, you can't blame me for taking action. What are you muttering about? The 2 gangsters were a little unhappy when they saw that they still didn't pay. Garen turned around and swung the knife in an arc, a precise hit on the side of the long-haired young man's neck. Boom. The other party didn't react until he was hit, and blinked in shock. He rolled his eyes and lost all strength. Thump. 1 fell. The remaining fat man opened his mouth wide, as if he had seen a stupid horse. You. He reacted and quickly punched Garen hard. The punch was fast but without any plan. Garen easily dodged it with a slight tilt of his head. Then a forward knee strike. There was a muffled sound, and the fat man fell to his knees, his eyes rolled white, and he also fainted. The body hit the vending machine with a loud bang. After bending down and searching dozens of dollars in change from the two gangsters, Garin stood up and saw the students passing by looking at him secretly with a horrified look. I am bored. He felt that such a life was too boring. So much so that teaching a few gangsters a lesson was an unprecedented event in the lives of these students, making everyone look like they were aliens. He turned around and bought a can of Coke. Garin opened it and drank while continuing to walk towards his home with his skull bag. Although it's cliché to teach a gangster a lesson, if I ever encounter one, I won't be able to give up resistance, he thought boredly. The quality of this body is already the same as that of an average adult. In addition, the sword skills he has practiced are terrifying. Not to mention the two gangsters, even another beating will not be enough to warm him up. Walking towards home, Garin didn't notice that not far behind him, a short-haired girl in a white sportswear was staring straight at him. Or maybe he noticed it but was just too lazy to pay attention to it. After all, the life of a middle school student and his life are completely different. I'm back. Garin opened the courtyard door and closed it with his backhand. In the small pond in the yard, a red koi carp shook its tail and moved its body, which was the only welcome to him. The entire courtyard seemed deserted and deserted. Garin walked into the inner room and saw a note on the table. Picked it up and looked at it. We have a company event organized in the afternoon, so you can order takeout or get some food. Dad. The room was empty, without a sound, except for the occasional distant sound of car horns. The afternoon sun hit the floor of the living room and illuminated the entire living room a bright red. Click. Suddenly the courtyard door slowly opened again. Kong Xingxiu, carrying a violin case, walked in. She was wearing a white dress, her long fiery red hair was blowing slightly in the wind, and her face with light makeup was exquisite. Standing in the sunset seemed like a beautiful scene. You actually came home before me. It's incredible. Kong Xingxiu turned her eyes and stared at Garin standing in the room. What does it mean to be incredible? Garin replied boredly. After getting along with her for this period of time, he finally understood the nature of this sister. She looks cold and elegant on the outside, but in fact she is absolutely disgusting on the inside and likes to expose people's pain. Roll. Ordinary people might be deceived by her cold appearance and be caught off guard if they don't pay attention. It's incredible. Kong Xingxiu turned around and walked straight towards Garin. An event that ordinary people cannot do or endure. This is how it is explained in the dictionary. She actually explained the meaning of the word carefully. Then why is it called incredible if I come back first? Garin added in a bored tone. I thought you would come back early and try to break into my room, rummage through the tools you used to commit crimes at night, and make some unforgivable disgusting fantasies about your lovely, innocent sister who cherishes you so much. Don't you think it's too shameless? Are you done? Kong Xingxiu now no longer needs to hide in front of Garin, and can freely release her bad nature. Have I ever done this? Garin blinked innocently. No. Kong Xingxiu stood in front of Garin. Her height was exactly the same as Garin. A pair of red eyes stared into Garin's eyes like gems. Look me in the eyes and tell me you're not lying. Garin stared into her eyes boredly. The two stared at each other until their eyes hurt, and no one could help but blink first. There was silence in the room, so silent that both of them could hear each other's breathing. The clock on the wall passed silently for 5 minutes. Kong Xingxiu reached out to lift a strand of hair and punched her hard. Bang! He hit Garin hard on the abdomen. Her movements were fast and skillful, and she had obviously secretly learned some not-so-strict fighting skills. But this is not the reason why Garin can't dodge. The real reason is that Kong Xiaofei shouldn't be able to dodge at such a speed. Tagalog, on the other hand, didn't want to hide. The small fist hit Garin on the abdomen, and then he retreated. Kong Xingxiu glanced at Garin, turned around and walked towards her room as if nothing had happened. Nice abs. She said nothing, opened the door, walked in, and then there was no sound. Why are you so crazy? Garen rubbed his abdomen. This body's physical condition has improved a lot, although this punch will not hurt, it still hurts slightly. And Kong Xingqiu obviously didn't use all his strength, he just showed punishment. The meaning of this punch is to express her authority and status as the eldest daughter in the Kong family. Anyone who contradicts her will not end well. Although she looks mature and neurotic on the surface, she still can't get rid of the childish nature of an ordinary student. Garen walked to the dining table and sat down on a chair, pouring a cup of herbal tea. Another boring day. In the evening, Kong Xingqiu rarely put on an apron and started cooking, while Garen was doing odd jobs. All kinds of exquisite side dishes were brought to the table. Scrambled eggs with tomatoes, wild vegetable soup, and fried meat with green peppers. Although they are all home-cooked dishes, the appearance is undoubtedly very successful, and the color and aroma seem to be well done. Thank you for your hard work, Garen said. Go wash your hands. Kong Xingqiu came over and stared at him condescendingly. My novel Mysterious Journey will have more fresh content on the official WeChat platform, and there will also be a 100% lucky draw gift for everyone. Open WeChat now, click on the plus sign on the upper right to add a friend, search the official account Dread and follow it. Hurry up.